What's good, guys? Welcome back to another video. Just a heads up, Blueprint is going to be closing in 3 days. If you have been watching these videos for a while and you know that this system works and you would like to learn it for yourself, Blueprint is the cheapest and the best option to learn this. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into it right now, but just understand that tons of people have already managed to change their lives and achieve their goals in trading simply by joining Blueprint and putting in a bit of work. If you've been trading for a while now and you're frustrated by your general lack of results, give it a shot. You might be surprised at what you managed to achieve. But with that out of the way though, let's get into today's video. And so far, things are looking kind of shaky in the sense that today is looking a lot less clear compared to yesterday. Also, yesterday, we basically managed to completely predict exactly what was going to go on with Bitcoin. I'm going to break it all down in this video, but just right before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Xuan. I have a 75% win rate on these YouTube calls. All of it is publicly documented. So all that means for you is that if you're new here, chances are you're in the right place because I tend to be right just a tiny bit better compared to when I'm wrong. So now that we get into the actual Bitcoin chart, what makes today so complicated? Well, it's a combination of a couple of things. But to answer the first one, it's that at the moment, price is very clearly in a bearish bias at the moment, and the daily bias is also bearish. But there's a weekly chart. If you guys recall earlier from the week, we wanted to see this get taken. Now, today, most likely, I'm going to have to make the decision to just basically be like, okay, even though this is what I would like to see, as long as the daily bias is pointing towards the downside, I'm going to just trust what the market is trying to say rather than, get too stubborn on my own opinion, right? Because at the end of the day, this is just what I think. So moving down to the daily chart, we can see that we are operating with a daily bias that is bearish at the moment, which means that we should technically be looking for a short. Now, in terms of targets that we can see from the daily chart, we can see that right here at 63,750 is a potential target. That gives us about $2,000 worth of movement. Do I think the price is actually going to hit this today? Well, highly unlikely, because so far, in terms of the average daily volatility that we can expect on a single daily candle, we are looking at about $1,700, which means from the high to the low of the weekly candle, we are expecting around $1,700. So the high of today's candle is 66,300 and the low so far is 65,300, which means we've already moved 1K, which means most likely we are looking at another potentially $1,000 move from the low of the day, which puts us around 64,000-ish. So, but either way, not to get too deep into that, so far we are looking for a bearish trade. Now, before I get into the 1 hourly chart, one of the things that I would like to point out, I don't know if you guys watched the video yesterday, but I did mention one very important thing, which is, yesterday you had Trump kind of speaking at 3 p.m. Now, something that often happens in the news day where the news is going to be dropped really late during the day. I'm talking 2 p.m., potentially even 3 p.m. like yesterday. You tend to get a situation where price does absolutely nothing, which, if you guys recall yesterday, I did think that this would be the most likely scenario. And one of the reasons why I just completely stayed out of the market, at least on Bitcoin. You still have great opportunities all across the board in terms of the NASDAQ. Like yesterday, NASDAQ was absolutely fantastic. Early CISD here straight, well, almost to the target, but still this was a pretty ambitious target. Gold yesterday had a very nice move as well. It's an easy momentum trade. Basically what I taught you guys yesterday, as well as throughout this entire week, is that, we don't really have USD red folder high impact news. Hence, if there is nothing to show on Bitcoin, then we're not going to try to force anything on Bitcoin. Instead, we're going to focus our attention on the other asset classes instead. Because at the end of the day, when you're trading, your entire job as a trader is to identify what is the highest probability or the highest quality trade idea that you could possibly have in the markets, and you trade that. So in that sense, you never have to be married to any one asset, right? If Bitcoin's not giving you anything, well, guess what? Look at Euro, look at NASDAQ, look at gold or whatever. You get the idea. Hey, this is Future Xuan that finished recording the video and realized he forgot to tell you something really important. This Saturday, I'm going to be running a free Q&A call where for a couple of hours to 3 hours, I'm going to be answering your trading questions. It's absolutely free to join. The last few times that I've run this, it's always super valuable and we always get really deep into questions. Case in point, I just posted the replay of one of the last Q&A calls that I did on a couple of weeks ago. So if you'd like to RSVP and just get an invite as to where that Q&A call is going to be held, click the second link in the description box below. It will lead you to just basically add a Zoom call link to your calendar. But with that out of the way, let's get back into the video. So I'm just going to remove all of the drawings for now, just so, we're not cluttering things up. Right now, if we go and operate from a clean slate, we have this bearish order block right here and this potential level right here. So price is currently en route to doing a potential change in state of delivery. Let me just mark this out. But just because price is going to potentially give us a bullish CISD does not mean that we're going to be doing anything about this. Why? Because we have a bearish daily bias. So oftentimes, when I speak with beginners, especially as they're trying to figure out this system, one of the things that they get confused on quite often is like, okay, if you're bearish, if your daily bias is bearish and you get bullish CISD, you know, what do? But the correct answer is you don't do anything. This is just going to end up being a no trade day. Now, am I saying that this CISD here is going to cause us to go for a no trade? Absolutely not, because the CISD here, even if you do get a CISD, you are still within this larger order block. So we're still going to be looking for a short, but still any sort of bullish movements. Like the reason why I'm bringing this up is to just educate, like any sort of bullish movements on an overall bearish daily bias plus an overall bearish trend, you completely ignore. And this is not going to be the safest way to explain this, but one of the funny ways that I explain it inside Blueprint is that, so assuming you're a guy and you're straight, it assumes that you're attracted to females. Now, we guys never run into a situation where we're going to be walking on the street, assuming we're straight, like we're going to see a dude and be like, whoa, you know, I really want this dude. Wow, he's so attractive. Like, that never happens. So the way this applies to what I'm trying to describe here is if your daily chart is bearish and your daily bias is bearish or overall trend is bearish and whatever, if you start paying attention and starting to trade any sort of bullish movements, it's essentially like you're gay. And so the moral of the story is to prevent any sort of confusion from, you know, not letting lower time frame moves confuse you from the higher time frame kind of trend. Just don't be gay. In that sense, like, you get the idea. But anyways, with that out of the way, like, that was just for illustration purposes. Even if that CISD were to happen, like, it doesn't change the fact that we are still going to ignore it. And like, obviously we're not going to do anything about it. But secondly, also, we're still operating within this larger bearish order block. So considering the fact that we do not have news today, it means that between the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., we're still going to just be looking for some sort of indication that, like, we're just waiting for an attractive female to pass by, basically. And that is going to most likely come in the form of some sort of a 5-minute CISD towards the downside, which essentially at the moment, I'm going to mark this level out right here at 65,368. Once we get that CISD, that basically turns this entire block here into a bearish order block that we can take advantage of. This is where we're most likely going to be operating from. In terms of the 1 hourly chart, like, I would have loved, yeah. In fact, let me just move this up a little bit, because that 1 hourly, like, assuming price gets rejected off of this order block right here and we don't get that CISD, that would be the ideal case scenario, where even right now you can already get into a trade if you see a fight in a CISD. But by the time you watch this video, like, you just need price to go below 65,400, and at that point onwards, you're going to be looking for some sort of a bearish trade. So the recording ended abruptly for some reason, but like, depending on where we were at the time, basically, if we don't end up getting that bullish CISD, there's going to be optimal, and we can just actually just start trading any sort of 5-minute CISD to the bearish direction that we can see from this point onwards. But otherwise, like, I think a candle close below here is going to give you just the utmost amount of certainty. And obviously, if price just continues being bullish for the rest of the day, we're just going to treat this as a no trade. At the end of the day, it's a non-use day, which means it's a low probability day anyways. So if we don't end up getting a trade, it's like whatever, you know. As usual, I'll be posting any of my trade updates over to X, so feel free to just follow me there. Like, all of my trade entries, they're shared publicly over there. It's not gated behind some signals groups or whatever. But yeah, with that out of the way, I'm going to catch you guys later. And remember to look at other assets, because like, the system applies just the same way to these other assets, and you're going to get some pretty good results out of it.